Well, things are going very well. Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy. Thank you to join us for this webinar so early, but it's so nice to be with you. Well, we just finished our harvest at the beginning of last week. Quite memorable ones, very interesting. It's been warm, and for the first time ever, we started our harvest in August, the
Wow.
31st of August, which is really very unique.
Wow. Wow. So this, being just talking about 2020 as a vintage, it's obviously early. Any other characteristics to the vintage that you could mention?
Well, you know, we had a very early season from spring. We noticed from the beginning that we're going to harvest quite early. And the main particularity is the fact that we didn't have a lot of rain. Actually, the rainfall was so little during the whole summer, something between 5 and 6 millimeter, which is very, very small for the months of June, July, and August. So, of course, we have very nice, ripe, and healthy fruits, which is very important for our Sauvignon Blanc and our Pinot Noir. And obviously, we are very pleased because the intensity of the flavors, the concentration of the sugar is going to bring wine with a lot of power, but also a good freshness because the acidity level has been preserved during all that season.
Nice, nice. Well, you know what? Let's get started. Maybe, you know, go back a little bit and maybe just talk about a little bit of the history of Henri Bourgeois. I know that I think it's 10 generations that your family has been in the Sancerre, Puy-Fumé area. Is that right?
Yeah, you're right, Eric. We've been making wine in the village of Sauvignon for 10 generations. It started back in 1697. But actually, when at that time, you couldn't make a living of only growing vines and making wine. So most of the families, they had to have cows and goats and also some cereals like wheat. And we also had vines. And very early in the 50s, my grandfather, Henri Bourgeois, decided to stop most of these multi-activities to focus on making wine. So it was quite risky at that time because he knew that he had his family to feed, but his love for the vineyard and the winemaking pushed him, and it was a very good decision because it gave him the possibility to plant vines on the best slopes and on probably the unique spot that the Sancerre appellation can have, but also in Puy-Fumé. So, he was joined then by my uncle and my father, let's say around 1965. And then all together they developed the vineyard until we got on board with my cousin and my brother. So you can see on this picture here, my grandfather, Henri Bourgeois, actually, his name was Etienne, but everybody was calling him Henri. That was regularly the ways that people were calling to each other. I don't know actually the origin of that or the main reason. So he was definitely somebody who had a very specific affection to the vineyard and to the winemaking, a very specific sensitivity.
Let me ask you this question. So, and then just if we can go back to the slide where we have the goat, I thought that might be kind of interesting. But you know, so you were there, your family was there as wine growers in polyculture, right? So they were growing grapes, but they were working with animals and maybe growing other crops, like you said, grains, cereals, etc. is there something that happened in the market as well in the 50s that made it possible for your grandfather to grow and change your estate this way?
Well, I think he kind of felt that Sancerre is a unique place and things are going to change in the future. He probably didn't know when, but he felt that it was difficult to cultivate wheat and vineyard at the same time, because there are a lot of things to do in the fields at the same time in the wheat and in the vineyard. So he also met a very important person from Belgium. He was a doctor in œnology, and he came to visit us, this person, and he told him, listen, you've got a great terroir. I'm a Burgundy specialist, and you can believe me, you're going to make exceptional wines from the vineyard you're cultivating. So you take a risk, but it's not a very huge risk to focus only on vineyard. So he got this inspiration that it was the correct time to focus on one activity and not to do any polyculture anymore.
And were his vineyards concentrated in Sauvignon at that time?
Yes, most of the vineyard were concentrated in Sauvignon, but also in Sancerre, which is at the foot of the Sancerre hill, because his family actually came from originally this village, which is only 5 kilometers from Sauvignon, obviously very, very close to each other. But it gave us the chance, it gave him the chance to cultivate on 2 different terroirs, but we'll speak about maybe the terroir a bit later.
So you, and in Sauvignon, we were looking at that, it's famous for 2 things, right? So it's got this most amazing vineyard there, Les Monts d'Année, right? And then it's got something else there, it's got a lot of goats, right?
Absolutely. Sauvignon is a small little village of even less than 200 inhabitants at the moment, still under 200 now. And it's a place where we have 2 controlled appellations, one for the goat cheese and the other one for the wine. And as you can see on this diapo here on this slide, is the fact that Sauvignon was an appellation by itself. On the left, top left, you can see Sauvignon 1926 superior, and the price was higher than the price of the Sancerre at the bottom of this list. It was a rouge, but still it was a lower price. Sancerre was considered as the generic wine, Sauvignon as a Grand Cru from the Sancerre appellation, because of many reasons, and mostly because of the famous dammed mountain, Les Monts d'Année.
Incredible. And the I'm sure you'll talk about it later, but the soils are very unique for Les Monts d'Année as well, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. Very unique. The facing of the slope, most of the slopes are facing south, which is the best exposition to grow vines in the North Hemisphere. So on this picture, to speak back about the family, on the left, Remy was my uncle. He was in charge of the vineyard, while my father in the middle was in charge of the winemaking and also let's say marketing. But at that time, we couldn't speak about marketing, obviously, but it was kind of traveling all over the world and visiting the US without speaking a word of English at the beginning of the 80s. So, well, it was an adventure for him. And on the right, my uncle Raymond, who joined the family after his career in teaching.
You know, we had a plan to have Jean-Marie in California in May this year. It didn't work out because of obvious reasons, but we were excited to have him here and do some events with him.
Absolutely. Well, he was frustrated, of course, and he really looks forward to spending a bit of time with you, and he loves California. That was almost a trauma for him. It was not nice, but that's how it goes. Huh?
Yeah.
Now on this picture here, so the rest of the family, the new generation, the 10th generation, with Lionel on the left, my brother, and Jean-Christophe, my cousin, and of course myself on the right. So we work together. We've been now working together since 1989, taking over, but still taking every single advice that we can get from the previous generation. It's always good. Even if you have a bit of experience, it's always good. So you discover the whole family, which is a beautiful picture to me, taken from the top of the hill at the back of Sauvignon. And you can see at the background Sancerre, the hill of Sancerre, which is 320 meters high. And if you can imagine, at the back of this hill, there is the Loire River going, running. And on the other side of the Loire River, it's Pouilly-Fumé. C'est Pouilly-Fumé. So it's a little bit in the fog, but it's at the back of Sancerre from where we were. So I'm not going probably to present every single person of the photo you just seen, but you can see that it's a family-owned business, and we are so proud to be able to work together because it's quite a rarity nowadays. But it's so important to us, and it brings really something together on an everyday basis. Technically speaking, as we all have a technical background, it's so important that we share any kind of questions that we may have.
And it's really, you know, that you had the first generation there, right, of Jean-Marie, Rémy, and Raymond a bit, and now you have this second generation, right, with your brother Lionel and your cousin Jean-Christophe. Lionel is taking care of the vineyards. Jean-Christophe is taking care of the cellar. And I think that you're also the main person who's facing the market. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, we can say that. Again, as we work all together, it's a way to share everything. So of course, we had at one stage to share the main fields, but actually you can consider that we put everything in a box and we shake the box all together and we take all the main decision together. And this is such an exciting, it's an exciting way of processing, because we are all connected to the production and all connected to marketing. And it's important that the people working the vineyard or in the winery are connected to the marketing and the sales and the markets.
Now, is there any future generation? So we talked about your father's generation, and now your and your cousin's generation. Is there a next generation that's coming along here?
Well, they are kind of having their own experience. But yes, we have, all of us have children. They are from, let's say, 24 years old down to 12 years old.
Okay.
So some of them are very excited about becoming part of the family, working on the winery, but definitely we believe that some of them are going to take over. We don't know yet when it's going to happen, but we want them to also have their own experience outside.
Yeah, fair enough. Too early, maybe too early to tell.
Absolutely,
right.
Absolutely, we'll see.
Well, maybe we could... What's that?
The beautiful slope here on the picture of the Mont d'Année, the damned mountain in wintertime.
Yeah.
It's a picture which been taken in February. And what is interesting is to see the color of the different lands over the Sancerre area. And it shows how Sancerre is rich in terroir.
So is that you right there in the vineyard?
Yes, absolutely. We were going up. It's a block of Pinot Noir, which we planted back in 1997. And it's 45% steep here. It gives a wonderful wine, but we didn't want to create a cuvée out of this block too early. So up to 2014, we blended the fruits from this specific block with Les Baronnes Rouges.
I see.
And here we still exactly at the same place. And it's interesting to see, first of all, the steepness of this slope. And also on the other side of the slope, you kind of discover the gravity-fed winery, our gravity-fed winery. We'll speak about it later, but yes, this is a place where we you can see the arrow here. And this is the place where we make all the wine at Henri Bourgeois with 5 different levels. But we have a specific slide which give all the details of this gravity-fed winery. But it is a beautiful spot. And then at the bottom, you also discover the village of Sauvignon, which is surrounded by the vineyards, which is typical from the Sancerre appellation. Every single village, and there are 14 which compose the appellation Sancerre, are surrounded with vineyard and with a lot of different small blocks, like in Burgundy. It's not as if people own a big piece of land and they work on big piece of land. No, they work on small piece of land, and we usually have a lot of different blocks on our property. For example, Henri Bourgeois, we're talking of 134 parcels of vines on 72 hectares. And mainly 7 different terroirs that we discover in Sancerre. And you had kind of an idea with the slide before, where we could see the different nuances of color of soils, which express the diversity and the mosaic of the terroir of Sancerre.
Can we go to the previous slide? I actually wanted to ask you there. So what kind of soil are we looking at there, Arnaud?
So we are now on the Pineau region Mars. So Pineau region is a soil type which comes from the ocean. 160 million years ago, the sea was in Sancerre, and when the sea went away, it left some sediments with shells which got fossilized over the time. Yeah. And so we can see, for example, snails or ammonites, so a lot of them. So we are exactly where people are working, picking the fruit on this photo here. It's on the damped mountain on the Pineau region Mars.
I see.
Which is very rare in Sancerre. It's only about 5–7% of the surface of Sancerre on Pineau region. The rest would be composed of limestone and flint, and of course, clay and limestone, which is terroir number 4 that we find the most in the Sancerre area.
And when you say flint, sometimes that's also called silex.
Absolutely.
Correct?
Yes. Yeah. The flint is the silex, exactly. Yeah. So we can actually see on one of the slides the different terroirs. I don't know if it's easy to find, but it's interesting because we have these 3 main different terroirs. Here we go, plus the Pineau region Mars. So you were mentioning about flint, which is called silex, which is at the bottom left here on this slide. And it's on the eastern part of the appellation along the Loire River, just before crossing to Pouilly-Fumé area. And it represents about 12 to 15% of the surface of Sancerre. So it's quite small in proportion. So here, this picture here shows a different soil, which is a limestone. So interestingly, if you grow vines, Sauvignon Blanc particularly, on limestone or on flint, the wine is going to taste very different, very different. That's why historically my grandfather started to elaborate every of his wines separately. He didn't want to blend, which our colleagues at that time didn't understand why, but he decided to separate because he loved the idea to offer authenticity of each type of soil. So from the limestone, the wine would be very intense, fruity, kind of easy to drink Sancerre, while Sancerre from flint, like this one here, it's a Sancerre with much more mineral character. It could be a bit shy in the nose when it's young, but over the time, it develops a lot of intensity, finesse, and elegance. And it is sometimes showing this typical pierre à fusil, gun flint smell.
Yeah. You know, sometimes I've seen you or Laurent take a couple of these rocks and bang them together, and you can smell the sulfur, essentially.
Absolutely.
Am I right? Yeah.
Absolutely. I can see that you did the experience, and it is amazing to be able to have two stones to strike to each other and smell the smokiness, and then take a glass of La Bourgeoise, for example, especially when La Bourgeoise is 2-3 years old, like the one we are selling at the moment. And then you have this gun flint character, which is absolutely unique expression of Sauvignon Blanc.
And La Bourgeoise comes, basically it comes from flint or silex soils, is that correct?
100% flint, absolutely. Of course, we do have clay underneath to feed the vines, otherwise grow on rock, it's almost impossible. But still, the thickness of the stones is absolutely amazing, whereas the vines of La Bourgeoise, which are old vines, 40, 50 years old, you know, planted on flint, it's always a wine with a lot of character, a lot of complexity as well.
Got it. So you talked a little bit about sort of the clay limestone. You talked a little bit about silex. The Kimmeridgian, what is that? What kind of wine does that produce?
So we produce from the Kimmeridgian malts Sancerre, La Côte des Monts d'Année in Chavignol. You know, this slope where the pickers were on the previous slide. So that's typically a block of Sauvignon Blanc and Pinot Noir that we have on that slope. So what is unique in terms of expression from the Kimmeridgian malts is the fact that we have this intensity of fruit, but very elegant as well. It's not like going to you, it's not like a very intense or has some of the New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc when they are very much explosive. No, La Côte des Monts d'Année would be very subtle, but intense. And as you take the wine in the mouth, it shows this saltiness, this iodine character, which probably is taken from the subsoil where the sea used to be 150 million years ago.
I see. Can we briefly go back to the slide that shows the 4 different kinds of soils? So we talked about the silex, the Kimmeridgian, you were talking about the coyote or the clay and limestone. What about did we talk about terre blanche?
No, we haven't taken much about terre blanche. So just probably to sum up, les terres blanches, well, maybe I'm going to start from the Loire River. It's easy for everyone who is listening to us today. So along the Loire River, we have the flint, the one at the bottom left on this slide. So with very angular stones, with a lot of minerality in the wine. So 15% of the surface of Sancerre. And we are so lucky that my grandfather planted a lot on this type of soil. So to us, it represents more than 25%. Okay. So after that, we have les caillottes, which is top right type of terroir on this slide. So les caillottes is limestone. And these limestones bring wine with a lot of intensity, a lot of fruitiness. We would drink this wine very young, I would say, you know, like in the year after the harvest. And then we have les terres blanches, which is clay and limestone chalk. So more clay than the caillotte one. It's more or less from Sauvignon until Sancerre. So it's about 40% of the surface of Sancerre. Les caillottes is also another 40%. So 15% flint, 40% terre blanche, 40% caillotte. Then we have about 5% Chimeridgian malts of the Sancerre area. So the terre blanche wines, like from Sauvignon, a part of Sauvignon, bring wine with a body, with roundness, with richness, and they need a bit of time to express really their character, but you can appreciate them young. Les Baronnes, for example, comes from mainly les terres blanches.
I see, okay. But Les Baronnes also, sort of your flagship wine, it has all the soil types in it, is that correct?
Yeah, we do blend a little bit of flint, and we do add a little bit of stones of lime, because we believe that this touch of limestone and of flint brings something which helps the wine to be even more completed, even more, how can I say, harmonious. That's what we're looking for. Even if it's 5%, that's enough to really bring what we want to express in Les Baronnes.
Excellent. Well, so I guess now we can kind of go. We were a little bit in the world of Lionel, your brother Lionel, and now maybe we can go a little bit in the world of Jean-Christophe, who is overseeing the winemaking, and I would be interested to know your approach to.
Absolutely.
To that.
So first of all, what is important to us is to pick the fruit at the correct moment in terms of ripeness. And it's not such an evidence. Remember, Sancerre is very hilly, and sometimes we can have like 150 meters from the bottom part of a slope and the top part. And 150 meters in altitude can change completely the ripeness of the fruits. And even if there are some current airs crossing some vineyard, inside one block, we can have some differences of ripeness. So it's really an exercise to make sure we're going to pick the fruit at the correct time. So what we do every single day before we harvest, we pick the fruit with my brother and my cousin. We go through the vineyard, different rows, at the bottom of the block, at the top of the block, and we pick berries and we taste the berries until we decide that it's going to be the correct moment. So it's not only samples that we take and we put in a bag to sample to the laboratory. No, we taste the fruit, and it is crucial. And we learned that even more since we have a vineyard now, a winery in New Zealand, because the window to pick the fruit in Marlborough is even more important. So in Sancerre now we do it so frequently. It's such an important exercise to do. Then what we aim to do is to pick the fruits. All the Pinot Noir are harvested by hand, and most of the Sauvignon Blanc on steep slope, old vines are picked by hand as well. And as we could also use a machine, we pick some of the block by machine just to make sure we're going to pick them at the correct time. So we have different teams working through the 134 blocks to make sure we're going to pick each of them at the correct time. Because otherwise it's a frustration when you can't pick the fruit because you're not well equipped, you don't have the team, you don't have the equipment. It's a frustration of a work of 12 months that you've done in the vineyard. Then,
yeah, but just really quick, I wanted to just confirm something. Of the 72 hectares that Henri Bourgeois cultivates, it's Sauvignon Blanc, of course, and Pinot Noir. Can you give us the rough percentage of maybe the Sauvignon Blanc versus Pinot Noir?
Yeah, more or less, Eric, we're talking of 80% of Sauvignon Blanc, 20% of Pinot Noir. And out of the 20% Pinot Noir, we make rosé and red. So it's going to be more or less about 40% rosé and 60% red that we do out of the Pinot Noir. And it depends very much on the origin of the terroir, if we make rosé or red out of the Pinot Noir.
And you have a touch of Pinot Donis as well. That's correct, right?
So we do have Pinot Donis, but a little bit further up in the Loire Valley. It's from a different area than Sancerre, but it's a very local grape variety, which offers wine with a lot of personality, wonderful rosés with kind of a white pepper character, lovely wines to match with summer food. So to carry on with the winemaking, what we like to do is to try to do as less as possible. The less the better. So when the fruits arrive in the winery, at the top of the winery, we take the fruit with a conveyor, which is soft. So we do not have berries which would be crushed. So they are completely entire when they are in the press. I'm talking of the Sauvignon Blanc because we do press directly the Sauvignon Blanc. Thank you. Yes, this is a very good slide to explain. So from the top, we receive the fruits. And then once they are in the press, it would last about 3 hours and we take the time to extract the top quality juice first. But we would separate 3 different juices over the press operation, the pressing operation. Then the different juices would go underneath by gravity, of course, no pump, in what we call the settling operation room, as you can see on this picture. So everything by gravity. And then from this place, the juice, the fresh juice, is going to settle down. It's going to clarify by itself at 5 to 8 degrees Celsius. The idea is to clarify, to get only a clean juice, which is going to ferment in a separated room, which we call it fermentation cellars, which is again at a different level. So everything, every transfer of the fruit or the juice is done by gravity, no pump, which is extremely important to us to preserve the flavors, but also to avoid any kind of effect of oxygen on the Sauvignon Blanc. So up to now, we haven't had any sulfur dioxide in our wine. I mean, up to what I just explained of our winemaking process, no sulfur dioxide have been added. Fermentation would happen, alcoholic fermentation. We do not make the malolactic fermentation. And after alcoholic fermentation, we take the wine at 5 to 7 degrees Celsius to prevent from malolactic fermentation to start, and in order also to preserve the new wine from oxidation. But no sulfur dioxide at this stage neither. So this is for the Sauvignon Blanc. May I go through the Pinot Noir? We still have time, Eric.
Yeah, let's, maybe you can briefly go through the Pinot Noir, and then maybe we can talk about some of the specific wines.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the Pinot Noir, as you could see on one slide previously, we pick the fruit by hand and then we sort them out also by hand, even though we are doing some experimentation by using an optical machine to sort out the fruits, because this is absolutely essential to make sure that the berries which you're going to put in a tank for maceration and fermentation are top quality. So we sort out the fruits and we destem the grapes, and then each berry is going to be taken to a tank, wooden tank. I think we also have a picture of the wooden tank here. Perfect, thank you. Where the fruit are going to macerate. And then the fruit is going to stay in that wooden tank here, yes, for about 1 month. So 10 days of cold maceration, and then alcoholic fermentation, and then we keep the fruit in contact with the wine another 10 days. So all in all, it's about 1 month that the fruits of Pinot Noir is going to spend in that open wooden tank. And then, of course, we would rack the wine out and we would press the dry skin, almost dry, to try to get a very concentrated wine. And after that, the wine is going to be taken in barrels for 1 year aging in different ages of barrel, new, 1 year, 2 years old oak barrels, like the one at the back here. And in those barrels, the wine is going to make its malolactic fermentation, which is, of course, a normal, natural process, which we do, but we like when it happens in barrels for the harmony of the future wines.
Got it. Wow, it's a beautiful cellar. How old is that cellar?
It's about 200 years old. It's actually the place where my grandfather, Henri, used to make his wine, but also his father and his grandfather. So yeah, it's always a place where we love to spend time. You can see a hook from the ceiling of this cellar, and this hook is where the ham and cheese was conserved. No fridge at that time. So that was the place, because the cellar was always at the same temperature, the 12 months of the year.
Wow, amazing.
So maybe we can speak about the various wines.
Yes, please, let's do it.
Okay. So here are the rosés, le vert galant, which is a Coteaux du Vendomois. You were mentioning about the Pinot d'Aunis. So Pinot d'Aunis grape variety is offering this Coteaux du Vendomois. We try to make this wine with the idea to really respect the terroir, but also the typicity of the Pinot d'Aunis, which is quite different because probably have not the same kind of fruit-forward expression than les jeunes vignes, Sancerre, Pinot Noir, which come from the limestone. Rather younger vines compared to the one of La Bourgeoise. I was mentioning La Bourgeoise 40, 50 years old. Here we're talking of 20, 25 years old vines, which offers a wine with a lot of elegance, fruitiness, very upfront style of rosé.
Are they both made the same way? I believe that the Sancerre rosé is made by direct press, so there's no maceration. The Pinot Noir just goes into the press, and you have a gentle press, and you get the wine. Is the Pinot Donis made the same way?
Well, you are totally right, Eric, and it's a very good question. We do have the direct press. We do practice, the direct press for Sancerre des Jeunes Vignes, and we do a little bit of maceration for Coteaux du Vendomois. It's always nice to try to get this roundness of the Coteaux du Vendomois. You know, it's filling your mouth and your palate. And thanks to this kind of a white pepper flavors, which hit this roundness, it's a wonderful contrast to have in such a wine. So we do a little bit of skin contact, yeah.
Great.
So we have then the range of what is the classic appellation Sancerre and Pouilly-Fumé, with les Baronnes Sauvignon Blanc, les Baronnes Pinot Noir, and Pouilly-Fumé en Travertin. So the common point between these three wines is clay and limestone. The three of them, they do have the majority of the assemblage with clay and limestone, which offers this interesting body, length, intensity. And as we have a very good acidity, it's a wine very lively in the mouth. The intensity of the flavors also comes from the fact that acidity supports the fruitiness. And it's even probably sharper in the Pouilly-Fumé en Travertin, while Sancerre-les-Baronnes would be rounder, dry, but rounder. And it's interesting to compare both of them. But definitely they do express hand in hand the Sauvignon Blanc from limestone and clay soils. Here is two interesting wines, and they are a legend in our family, in our range. On the left, La Côte des Monts d'Année, which is this very famous slope from Sauvignon on Kimmeridge Mars. Remember the fossils I was mentioning? Look at that, the sea was there. The shark used to come and reproduce themselves in the area. We have found some shark tooth in the vineyard. So when you just imagine that, it's a unique sight. So because of major earthquake, which happened after that, it's only a few slopes which are covered with Kimmeridge and Mars and all these pieces, micro pieces of fossils, oysters, oysters and mussels, which got fossilized over the time. So you can see here a beautiful view of La Côte des Monts d'Année, which is not big. It's about 40 hectares. And we are so happy to have almost 7 hectares on this slope. But you know, La Côte des Monts d'Année is not named, even the slope is the same when you look at it. Only some blocks are named La Côte des Monts d'Année. So we do have 3 hectares of Sauvignon Blanc with the real name La Côte des Monts d'Année. So that's also a particularity of France. You may have 2 blocks which are very neighbors, but the one on the left, which would be called La Côte des Monts d'Année, the other one is not going to be called La Côte des Monts d'Année.
Wow.
We may, well, it's a wine which we decided not to ferment and age in barrels. It's a wine 100% fermented and aged in stainless steel in order to keep the purity the finesse, the very distinguished character that we have. It's unique. And I'm sure that for those who tasted this wine, when they have tasted it once, they would recognize it forever. It has this very singular character and expression. And really, all customers who tasted this wine, they can find easily again, even if they are not sommeliers or wine connoisseur, it has this very specific character. We didn't want to use barrel not to hide this pure authenticity of terroir.
Yeah, no, I've often showed this wine next to Les Barons, and they're great to show next to each other because they're so different. They're both amazing wines, but you can really feel sort of the structure and the minerality of Les Dames, which comes from those amazing Kimmeridgian soils.
Absolutely, absolutely. So La Bourgeoise. So La Bourgeoise is a wine which carries a lot of my grandfather's perception of terroir. La Bourgeoise was born in a cellar. We didn't know. I mean, I was too small, but my parents, my uncle, didn't know that he was making this wine out of flint, because this wine was like experimental for years. And he decided to put the wine in bottles from La Bourgeoise, from the flint, one of the blocks that we have. It took a bit of time because the wine was shy, not as intense as the one from limestone or clay or Kimmeridgian malts. But he understood that we need to use oak barrel for the wine to breathe through the wood, to develop its character, to become adult. And then, since this experimentation that they did, we decided to launch La Bourgeoise only 2 or 3 years after the vintage. For example, we are selling at the moment 2016, while we just moved to 2017, while we are in 2020. So it's a wine which needs a bit of time. It's a wine which has a huge potential of aging. The aging potential is 15 to 20 years, even more for those who are patient enough. And the complexity that we get out of a terroir like this one is just unique.
So basically, if we look at those two, right? So we had the Les Dames, it's all from Sauvignon, it's all Kimmeridgian soil, and it's all stainless steel. And then with the La Bourgeoise, now we've got sort of this 70-30, 70% stainless, 30% 300-liter oak barrels from Sancerre, all from the same village, and from different soils, from silex soils. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Summarize?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Now,
all right, and then we've got these amazing wines here, Jadis and Danton.
Yes, indeed. So Jadis and Danton, I'm not sure that these two words are familiar to everyone, but it means the past time. There is probably a proper translation, Eric. You're fluent in French, you may help me here.
I'm going to go with yours, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Jadis and Danton, we made these two wines from respectively Kimmeridgian malts and flint. The idea was, when we launched this wine back in 1993 and 1998, to make a wine having the same authenticity, I would say, rough, as the fruit brings them. We do not interfere at all in these wines, like at all. Of course, natural yeast, of course, old barrels, of course, no fining, no tartaric precipitation, no filtration, nothing. Brut. And that's what we wanted to show out of these two magic terroirs that we have in Sancerre, Chimay region for Jadis, Flint for Dantan. And those wines, they have such a power in their own style. They have their own finesse as well. They probably need to settle down a bit. And also time is playing a good game. I mean, is helping the wine to fine a bit, to get a little bit more elegant, but showing real authenticity. And sometimes we even have some, how do you say, sediments of lees, because we only rack the wine out of the lees after full moon, because when there is full moon, the atmospheric pressure is high, and we like that the wine can settle down properly during that specific period. And as the lees are settled down, we take our chance to rack the clean wine out and put it in a bottle directly. And if we go wrong, we do it again. We wait the next full moon, and then we rack the clean wine out and back to the bottle, straight to the bottle, sorry.
Let me just thank you for that, by the way. By the way, Sancerre Dantan is just one of my absolute favorite white wines in the world. I think it's just incredible.
Wow, you can read.
I have a couple questions from some of the audience here. So Kelvin DeBoer, who is our field manager on the peninsula in South Bay and Santa Cruz and Monterey, he was simply asking, what is the total case production for Henri Bourgeois?
Well, if you look at the appellation Sancerre and Pouilly-Fumé, we reach about because we talk more of bottles than cases.
You can tell me, you could tell bottles, I can divide by 12.
It's about 1 million bottle of Sancerre Pouilly-Fumé, more or less, between 900,000 and 1 million bottles, yeah.
I got it. So, yeah, so about maybe 150,000 cases. No, less than that, about 80,000 cases.
Yeah.
Yep. And then Scott Stewart, who I know that you know, he's director of sales for Northern California. He was asking about how is the label going to change, if at all, going forward? Some wines have Famille Bourgeois on the label. Will all the labels be unified in the future? So maybe you could just talk a little bit about the labeling.
Yeah, sure. So we decided to use kind of umbrella brand, if you may understand what I mean, which is Famille Bourgeois. So under this umbrella brand, we have, of course, the vineyard of Clos Henry, and then we have Henri Bourgeois plus hotel restaurants. So we launched about 5 years ago now, a bit less, 4 years ago, single vineyard wines, les Côtes-au-Valais, le Cotelin, les Ruchons, and the Red Les Graverons. And we decided, as there were new wines in the range, we decided to bring a little bit of freshness, a little bit of color, because we consider that we need to exist on a shelf. It's important that our brand shines a little bit on the shelf. So the yellow color has been brought. So with these new wines, we were kind of testing a little bit our choices. And we had a very good feedback from the market about those choices. So we definitely going to start a work of getting the rest of the brands, the rest of the the wines, the different bottles, under the same color code with the yellow.
I see.
Yes.
Yeah. Got it. Well, I've got another question here. Chris Webb, who is one of our reps who works in the Los Angeles area, he was asking will you continue producing the Chateau Meillant wine? And do you approach Gamay in the same way that you approach Pinot Noir?
Yes. We definitely carry on with Chateau Meillant, which is made out of Gamay and Pinot Noir. The approach with the Gamay is in terms of vigor of the vineyard, because everything is around the vigor of the vineyard. We expect our vineyard to have a low vigor in order to concentrate the energy to the roots. If the vigor is too important, that means that the plant, the part outside in the air, is going to be too powerful, and the roots are not going to get what we expect to get in the future wine. So the philosophy is the same. In terms of maceration, we would extract more, we would be more under the idea to do more extraction, more plunging of the grapes of Gamay compared to the Pinot Noir. Our Pinot Noir, we do just 3 or 4 different plungings to help the extraction, but we don't want to extract too much of the tannins of the Pinot Noir. While with the Gamay, we can do that more, because then we're also going to extract the spicy character of Gamay, which we love on this type of soil.
Got it. What is the blend in general between Pinot Noir and Gamay in the Chateau Meillant?
Well, by the law, if my memory is correct, it's not allowed to have more than 20% of Pinot Noir.
I see. Got it. Okay. Then I had a question here from Thomas Favorite. He's one of our field managers in Los Angeles. Tony, and he was asking, what is the Thomas Favorite? Yeah. He was asking, what is the aging potential of Jadis and Danton? And is it the same as La Bourgeoise?
It depends very much on the vintage, obviously, but yes, definitely you can keep this wine for a long time. As I mentioned, we started in 1993 and in 1998, respectively, for Danton and Jadis. We opened in 1998. That was for Christmas last year, yes, and it was absolutely gorgeous. So the potential can be up to 30 years without problem, specifically when the vintage offers very good balance between acidity and concentration and the body of the wine.
I see. Definitely. What do you think is the longest lived Sancerre of all your Sancerre? Is there one in particular that maybe has the most aging potential?
It's a difficult question, because I've been very surprised with La Côte des Mondanis, which aged very well as well. Jadis, Danton, La Bourgeoise, and Etienne Henri, because Etienne Henri is 100% fermented and aged in oak, not only in new, but in oak, and it's got an absolutely wonderful potential aging. It's difficult to say, Eric. If you ask me, the one which would stay Sancerre with its own character over the time, definitely Jadis is part of the one which still expresses a lot of the Sancerre main characteristic, I would say.
Got it. Right.
Over the time.
By the way, Ann Miller, if you remember Ann Miller in Los Angeles, she said to say hello. She has a question that's a little bit complex, so I don't know if we can get into too much detail. She was asking about, there was a pairing suggestion with one of the wines, scallops and mango compote, and she's asking, is the recipe available? So she has dinner with one of her buyers and she would love to prepare it. So I will put that as a note to follow up in email and get your scallops and mango compote recipe if it's available.
Well,
but in any case, Ann Miller, yes.
No, what
So,
I wanted to say, may I suggest and to come to Sancerre to taste scallops and mango to make sure that the pairing is going well together.
She could go to your brother's restaurant, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
Correct? Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, the last question I think I'm going to just take for myself that we didn't really touch upon. So organic viticulture. So I know that you're in the process of getting some certification for organic. Can you just briefly talk about organic viticulture at Henri Bourgeois?
Yeah, sure. We've been practicing method in terms of culture in the vineyard, which have been always respecting the environment. And at Henri in New Zealand, we've been going through certification back in 2008. So we think that under the 134 blocks of our own vineyard, we are now ready for this conversion. So what we are looking for, because it's quite massive work, I must say, to have all these various blocks split in the whole vineyard of Sancerre and being cultivated organically. So what we try to look for with this method is, first of all, of course, to make sure we're giving the best possibility of our plants to grow in the best conditions in terms of working the soils, but also using protections against downy mildew or powdery mildew, which would be soft, which are not going to pollute the soils for the coming generations. So we know that having as natural condition to grow vines, it's going to bring a multi-dimensional taste in the wine. And we have noticed that at Henri, the wine that we produce there are not only on 2 dimensions, but I would say on 3 dimensions. They are completely in 3D in terms of relief, in terms of freshness, in terms of harmony. And I think through that process, we're going to go deeper in terms of harmony and also of complexity for the wines over the time.
Wow, great. And then when do you think that you'll get the organic certification?
If things are going well, in 2023, our vineyard, our 72 hectares are going to be converted completely.
Wow, amazing, amazing. Well, just one last thing. I don't know, do you want to give us a little look out your window at Les Mots d'Amener? Is it possible or is it too dark now?
Well, it's starting to be dark, but I'm so excited to try to show to the audience today our beautiful view from here. It's a little bit rainy, I'm very sorry. I tried with my remote to order nice weather, but it didn't work. But I'm going to show you the place. Sorry, it's going to be probably moving the screen. I'm back here. Oops. There we go. Can you hear the bell? of Chavignol. So here is the damp mountain.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There we go. And at the back here, the church of Chavignol, and completely at the background, the hill of Sancerre.
Oh, wow. We can definitely hear the church bell now.
It's 7 o'clock. It's about...
7 o'clock. How great is that? By the way, Arnaud, Suzanne just sent me a message and she said, good to see you, Arnaud, and thank you for bringing the passion and your remarkable deep dive into your estate. We are very proud to represent the Bourgeois family. Yeah, that's Suzanne. So she's watching, and she just sent that message right now. So
that's so nice from Suzanne.
And she's so right. And in our portfolio, Henri Bourgeois has a very special place. And without the wines of Henri Bourgeois, our portfolio would not be the same. So we really appreciate the partnership with your family. Yeah, thank you so much, really. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Your words are going straight to our heart. I will pass on your nice words and Suzanne's ones as well to the rest of the family who couldn't join today, but believe me, I will definitely pass on to them. And it's an honor to us to be distributed, to be represented by such a wonderful team. I had the chance to meet a few of the team a couple of times when I visited California, and very professional, very involved, passionate, and really when you sell wine with your heart and with your stomach, definitely it brings something, and that's the best way that we can have ambassadors of our wines in the US. That's absolutely sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arnaud. Thank you very much. Yes, and thanks to everyone for watching today. I think this was a great dive into Henri Bourgeois. It was really vital for us to get this from you today. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.
All the best.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.